Here at the Wynn Studios with Bluewire Studios here at the Wynn Hotel. And I have a friend again, another virtual friend that turned real on me. This is incredible, Trevor Houston, Who You Know podcast. And it's still one of my favorite interviews because I have not been so emotional in an interview because what you guys do and how you do it is so incredible. What was your mission in creating Who You Know?
Wow, so that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, I want to say it is great to finally meet you in person.
And what a better place, like Blue Wire Studios. We were talking about, we get to go to a lot of studios. You got a killer one in Texas.
Yep.
I have one at SoFi and one in Orange County. This place, if you guys haven't seen the Blue Wire Studios,
Incredible.
you haven't seen, right? The best in the world.
I've
Literally, this is the best studio in the world. Not to take over this interview for the studio, but it's like Disney. They always complain at ESPN that they're more interested in the set than they are the people. So now you can be interested in both here. You got the best set in the world and the best people.
This is great. But to answer your question, in that interview when we had you on, it was a great interview. You did get emotional, but you also dropped a lot of mics on that episode, a lot of value. But for us, really the mission is to help people who are broken, right? A lot of people don't see the job seeker community. They look past it. They don't really see them. And the problem is they're getting so much rejection, and they're applying online. That resume goes in a black hole, and they feel isolated. They feel alone. They feel hopeless. They feel worthless. And after a certain amount of time, like we've lost people to the job search, to suicide. And
wow.
I mean, it gets really rough. People get depressed. Their families are depending on them, and they just get anxiety, and the enemy's just trying to destroy them the whole time. The enemy's getting in their ear telling them, you're not good enough. And so really for us, it's about lifting people up. That's why I wanted to bring people like you on the show. It's not just about bringing employers, right? It's about bringing people who are what I classify as world changers, people who can speak life into broken people and give them hope and lift them up. And so that was really my mission.
I think it's interesting because you have really complimented me about you have some nuggets and some drop mics. You guys drop the mic, and you have probably, not to compliment it too much, the best sound effects. I was hoping you'd bring some to my show. You had it on Clubhouse as well with your lunchtime for champions. I just love it because it brings that energy. But there is a disconnect. There is a talent shortage.
Yes.
Yet there's so many people that are in depression, anxiety, and frustration because they're looking for a job in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And when we were dropping some mics, some of them were about pragmatic tools in which we can facilitate helping the statistical success of people to find jobs. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people are making today, why they can't find jobs?
I'll say some of the biggest mistakes is just not becoming visible on social media, right? I get a lot of people that they don't want to market themselves. And they think that just the old way of doing it, applying online, like that's not going to cut it anymore. You have to be a brand. You have to have a personal brand, and you have to market yourself, and you've got to show people why you're the thought leader, why you are the best HR candidate, or whatever position or role that you hold, that you're the best at that. And people need to start speaking about that on a regular basis and put content out. And we teach that and we train that, and the people that take it to it, they see results. And then others, they're afraid. It's about the fear of judgment, fear of what other people are going to think about me if I put myself out there and I make a video or I put a piece of content out there. What are other people going to view about me? And that's what's really holding them back.
And there's a romanticized vision or perception of people that are entrepreneurs. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur because of the freedom. Working at home, my own hours. But there's also a freedom of having your own employees and your own overhead, a freedom of paying your own benefits, a freedom of being undercapitalized. And one of the things that I love talking about is entrepreneurship, because especially with COVID, the climate's changed. All the negatives of working for a company that had expense accounts and equity and salaries, and most importantly, as you know, in America, benefits can be worth more than the salary if you have a family.
Most definitely.
Right? And
tell those on Cobra, everybody that's on Cobra paying $800 a month, and killing them.
Yeah, and they have to, of course, because
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah, and especially now with the virus out there, you don't want to
Yeah.
get a bill.
Right.
But still, I think they're ignoring huge opportunity. That there's a unique opportunity in history today that the big companies, the ones that do extremely well, paying salaries, commissions, bonuses, equity, and benefits, they're dying for talent. And guess what? You can work at home. A lot of them on your own schedule. A lot of them don't even care if you work at home. You can work on the beach, and for whatever reason, people don't have an open mind, an open heart, and open hands. They're stuck into this box of, I got to put my resume up on the internet to the company or start my own business. And both of those, to me, are losing propositions. It takes a freak of the week to be a successful entrepreneur. I don't care how many people are starting to be entrepreneurs.
Freak of the week. I love it.
Man. It's
Mic
not,
drop, if I had one.
But look, I'm really good at this, and I fail more than I succeed.
Yeah.
And that's both sides, investing and being an entrepreneur, meaning starting my own businesses. It's just easier when you have a lot of money. So, I always said, look, when you got $20 million and you invest $2 million in 10 companies, and one makes $100 million and you lose the other $18 million, in everyone's eyes, especially if you know how to brand yourself, you're a goddamn genius. But you're a baseball player that sucks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Any sport in the world, 1 out of 10 sucks. It's like I said, you got to be a freak of the week. Why do you think people continue to be lemmings and either continue to start a business without doing what it takes to make the business successful with all these romanticized visions, or they just look for a job the wrong way or the wrong place?
So I think with social media, it's a double-edged sword because, in my pocket, I do have the power to create a business, right? Everybody does. And so I think people are seeing that, and there's this big wave of entrepreneurs that are, a lot of people that probably shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
They probably shouldn't be, and they're going to learn the hard lessons. But I think with the Instagram, and you start seeing the all the flash and all the, people put out the best picture of themselves on social media, and so they show, people start to see that, and they want that. They want that life. FOMO.
Yeah.
FOMO, fear of missing out. And so it's like, I want control. I want to have my own schedule. I want to live lavishly. I want to be able to have passive income, and I want all these things. But at the end of the day, are you willing to put in the work to get it? And I don't think most people are.
And I think it's more than just the work to get it. It's, do you have, one, the situational knowledge and the capital? So I think a lot of people do have what it takes, and they drive themselves into that ground. And you may have lost people, like you said, actual suicides from job seekers. I'm on the other side. I had one of my entrepreneur friends who actually helped and served the teenage suicide community kill themselves because the amount of anxiety from being an entrepreneur is equal to or greater than that of anything in the world. Talk about rejection, because when you're seeking a job, a lot of times you haven't invested everything into the job search financially. But I know so many entrepreneurs that have that same rejection, the same FOMO and FOPO, fear of what other people think, that they're going to be a loser because their business just did what 99% of all businesses do, fail.
Well, that's what it was for me. So my first year in financial services, so I own a financial company, and my first year in financial services just about destroyed me. I left an industry, I was from the auto industry, I left an industry where I was a top producer and I was doing really, really well, very, very early age, and I made the transition to become an entrepreneur and start a business, right? And my first year was rough. I mean, it was a beatdown, and I remember literally being broken on the ground, crying, just completely shattered, and it was a hard day. But then I also remember drawing a line in the sand one day and saying, enough is enough. No more stinking thinking, right?
I love that.
Like I can't, because the enemy was attacking me through that process. The enemy wanted me to fail, and I started to get victim mentality, and this is wrong, and that is wrong, and one day I was like, you know what? Enough's enough. I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of feeling sorry for myself that I'm failing. And so I just drew the line. I said, no more stinking thinking. And from that day forward, things started to really take off. But thank God for that, right?
Yeah. And through that, things took off, but I guarantee there was a shift not only in the mindset of saying the thinking's thinking, but there was a heart set, and then there was practical things that you did. You'll see a lot of times when people stop the stinking thinking, all of a sudden they lose weight. They stop drinking. They start doing a lot of things in a positive way, because positive favor and positive behavior work in its favor, just the same as negative behavior and favor work against you. What were some of the pragmatic things when you stopped your stinking thinking? There were some pragmatic practices that all of a sudden, did you get into shape? Did you lose weight? Did you eat right? Did you quit drinking? Were there any changes that stinking thinking
I
changed
love
beyond
this
the
question. I started serving. I started serving people, literally. I found a local church that had a group, and this is how I got into the whole job seeker thing. Had a group it was a job networking group, and originally somebody told me, go there because there's job seekers there that will need your services, right? 401k rollovers, insurance, benefits, all of that. They'll need you. And then I walked in the room, I saw people were hurting, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, how am I supposed, like, these people were hurting. And so I was like, okay, well, let me just be a fly on the wall. Let me see what the problem is. And I started to sit down face to face with these people and just figure out what their problems were. And it was the fact that they weren't being seen. They weren't getting noticed in their job search. And I figured out ways to solve that problem. Not what I was there to do, not the financial services. I figured out a way to actually solve their problems and serve. And I just started building trainings. I started doing all these different things to just serve and give back and just pour into this audience. And things have really taken off since then. So serving, I think, was the main difference.
Yeah, there's two things that come along with serving, and I'd love to discuss them with you because I know you and I are aligned in this sense. The first is that you can't change the way you feel by telling yourself to feel differently. You can't use logic to change the way you feel. You can sit there all day long when you're worried, depressed, anxious, and frustrated and say, oh, let it go, don't worry, don't be mad. And we all have done it. We've all sat there all night long going, don't worry, or let it go. The girl broke up with you, and you're trying to tell yourself something. It doesn't work. But what does work is the second part, which is to take action. And the best action that you could take is the highest power of action, which is being of service, or to do a kind deed, or do something kind. And it instantly changes the way you feel.
Oh, my goodness.
Which puts and perpetuates something much greater. And within that context, and you and I come from different religious backgrounds, coming from where we're at, but we just share more a faithful background now, that we, serve what's served to us, meaning the highest, omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing source. The one that when you realize that the all-powerful, all-knowing, and powerful source that cares about us as much as we care about our children knows everything. And therefore, all that we've been wasting is just wasted. And that now, when we can provide that through us with true acknowledgement, when we give away, when we're of service, we truly acquire the knowledge of what we had. We don't take for granted what not only other people are wishing for, but what we ourselves have been wishing for. And we find ourselves in a position of enlightenment, of acknowledgement, of revelation that our faith is much bigger than anything else. And all of a sudden, the coincidences that we want in our life appear.
They just start showing up.
Every time for everyone. It's the only guarantee that I give people in radical humility, that you got to find your faith. How did you find that faith in the time, that dire need of desperation? You're failing, you drew the line, and I know that's the low point. Your bottom had a basement.
Yeah. It's funny. I've always had faith, but when you're at your bottom, when you've hit rock bottom, I think you're more open to you're just like, Lord, save me, right? And you're open to looking and receiving and listening, right? I think that's another thing is there's so much noise right now. especially if you're a job seeker. Oh my goodness, they're getting so much noise when they sign up to Indeed or any of these things. Like all of a sudden they get bombarded with all these emails and all this stuff. So there's so much noise. They need to take some time to get quiet and listen and get the answers. And I think that was for me what I did when I drew that line. It was like, hey, let me see what's going on. Let me get quiet and get still. And there's another thing that I always like to talk to people about is when you're going through a hard time, stop complaining and start praising.
Yeah.
Right? Stop complaining, because what it does is when you're praising, you're thankful, you're grateful, and it's hard to be negative when you have gratitude. All right? When you're grateful and you're like, wow, I'm so thankful to be here and to be hanging out with Dave today. Like you're just in a good mood, and the law of attraction, you're going to bring good things to you, right?
Yeah.
The positivity will bring it to you.
It's so interesting because I have always dealt with celebrities, and a lot of people now will be like, oh my God, you're such a big celebrity, and it's interesting because what I really am is a celebrator. And when you start celebrating others and elevating others, all of a sudden you do reach what other people want and you elevate yourself. And to be a celebrator and elevator is absolutely key in my life. Last question real quick. Who you know?
Who you know?
So who should we know? There had to be a reason in that title, who you know. So, what's behind who you know? Who should we know, or who do we know, or what does it mean to you, and what should we know?
The title actually came from the job seekers themselves, and whenever we would go to this church, and the job seekers would come out and they would celebrate their landing. They would just land a job. They'd come back and they would tell their story. It was always a connection. It was always networking. Okay, it's not what you know; it's who you know. Right? Always, like 9 times out of 10. And they would tell their story, and they're like, yeah, it was an old coworker, it was my boss, or whatever from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or this, that, and the other, connected me to this and that. And so that's where the name came from. Who should you know? I think this is important too. It's not necessarily always who you know, it's who knows you.
I like that.
Who knows you, right? Because let's put it this way, I know Jerry Jones, okay? I know who he is. He doesn't know who I am.
Right.
But if he did
He knows who I am. So does Steve.
Yeah, there you go. And maybe we could,
Exactly.
he could introduce me. But see, if he did know me, right, then maybe there's opportunities for some collaborations and things like that. But just me knowing him doesn't do me any good.
Yep.
Right? So it's really in that order. It's who knows you, then it's who you know, right? Who's in your network, and then it's what you know. Because, if you have the right network, the right sphere of influence, you can get anything you want out of life. I really, truly believe that. And I think it's also about networking up to a higher sphere of influence, connecting with people like yourself. You know?
And finding open mind, open hearts, and open hands through who you know by asking, do you know anyone that can help me, is a key component to accelerate and compound. Asking's a big deal.
People don't ask.
They don't. I'm still asking for crumbs. See, it's not that people don't ask, it's we're not asking big enough. And as much as I dare to say that, I fight myself every day and say, why don't you ask more, and why are you asking for crumbs? This is an infinite universe. I live between limitlessness and infinity. And although I'm asking to empower over 1 billion people every day, asking for at least 10 people I can help and at least 10 people that can help me, I'm still asking for crumbs. And I'm not asking often enough, and neither are you, and neither are all our listeners as well. Trevor Houston, he is an incredible philanthropreneur. He is doing it for the people, making money, helping people, and having fun. I'm here, Dave Meltzer, with the Playbook at the incredible Bluewire Studios at the Wynn Hotel.